There it is.
So good.
Hey, Bill.
So good.
We're live, pal.
We're live.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest live football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns. As always, it's your guy, Bully Rye, alongside me, as always, for the football shows, Banker Bill. Bill, what's up, bud? How's it going, man?
What's happening, brother? It's football talk time. Let's get into it. I'm ready to yell crap a lot.
Yeah, it's
that sounds terrible. Just to lead it off like that, if people were here the first time, like, why does that guy yell crap a lot?
Yeah, why does he yell crap a lot? Yeah. It's been a week. We had another week of college football go down. We had some more upsets in the world of college football, and as always, we have another week in pro football the same week. So, without further ado, Bill, let's go ahead and get started here on the show with Tap Outs and Touchdowns Football Edition live this week. And let's start off college football. Week 10 has come and gone, and we have a new top 10, even though it's not really a new top 10 in the college football playoff rankings. We see the biggest change this week was Oklahoma losing quite possibly their last game against in-state rival Oklahoma State for the foreseeable future and dropping out of the top 10 as a result, which leads Ole Miss to jump into the top 10 at number 9, and Penn State now enters the top 10 up against their big game against Michigan this weekend. Bill, what's your thoughts on the new college football playoff rankings here after college football week 10?
I'm still mad that Georgia's number 2. I think that's wrong. However, they could get to prove it this week, as I believe they play Ole Miss, which is going to be an exciting matchup. It's fun. The 9 and 10 teams, they have opportunities this week. Penn State playing Michigan, Ole Miss playing Georgia. It's going to be a fun weekend of matchups. And we're going to watch some football ourselves, I think, Ryan. Are we going to do that? So we're going to miss some of the good games.
We are.
Yeah, you almost forgot. Oh, my gosh.
Listen,
forgetting.
I
legit
watch
the number 2 team in the country.
The number 2. Yeah, I was going to say the FCS. No, so for those of you who are unaware, your guy has been under the weather, let's say.
You're sounding much better today than yesterday.
Thursday? Though. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
much better.
Last Thursday, I had an HOA meeting, and I got extremely sick afterwards, to the point where I was supposed to take a trip to Charleston to see a very close friend of mine. I was supposed to go to Charleston to see a friend who lives in Australia that only comes to the States once every 4 years. Shout out Dingo. He's a former guest on the show on the wrestling shows. And I did none of it. My mom brought me groceries on Saturday. I just sat sick in my house for 3.5 days. So I almost forgot I was going to watch college football this weekend. So I'm pretty excited about that. But listen, while we get our first comment, Volley Polly, we have some decent college games coming up. You're absolutely right. A lot of ranked versus ranked matchups. A game that we're not picking. I think you might have said it, Bill. Washington, USC this weekend. So, no, that was last weekend. Washington gets somebody else good in the Pac-12. Who cares?
They play 3 ranked teams in a row.
Yeah. So
I think it's Utah this week, by the way, right?
Utah. That's it. I mixed them up. They both start with U. USC, Utah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I've got a gripe. I've got a gripe with the college football top 10. Ohio State plays a really good defense last weekend, but a really bad overall team. They narrowly escape. Georgia plays a one-loss Missouri team, number 12 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They win pretty convincingly. It was close for a while. I think the final score was like
close, 30-21.
But I don't understand how Georgia's good win was not better than Ohio State's okay win to jump them up to number 1 in the polls. I know it doesn't make a difference, right? Because at the end of the year, this should work all of itself out.
Yes.
But I don't think the playoff committee has it right. I think, first of all, I think they're wrong on 2 teams. If you want my top 10, I've got Georgia at 1. I've got, let's give it Ohio State at 2 and Michigan 3, only because I don't like what's going on in Michigan right now. Pedro has a question for you, Bill. What's up with Bill? If you're watching the live stream,
I already laughed at it.
Bill is in Seahawks gear because the Dolphins are off this weekend, and Bill lived in Washington for
18
a considerable point of his life.
Right.
So I've got the top 3 just in a different order. I still think that Washington is a better team than Florida State. I think Washington has a better system, a body of work than Florida State. I think Washington deserves to be in the top 4. Now, again, if all goes down like it's supposed to, Ohio State or Michigan will eliminate each other, and it will still bump Washington in to the playoff as long as they handle business. You also had Clemson upset Notre Dame last weekend. Lord knows how that happened.
No, nobody knows how that happened.
Considering
I don't
the
even
way
know
that
if he knows how it happened.
Considering the way that Clemson has been playing, they lost to NC State the week prior. You had something that we didn't talk about on the show. There was a huge to-do about why or why they've been playing and how they've been playing, thanks to the Dabo Sweeney's radio interview or lack thereof. And so I guess he's lit a fire up under his team to be able to have them come up and knock off Notre Dame. We had Washington beat Southern Cal, as we talked about it just a second ago. Caleb Williams was seen on the sidelines in the stands crying with his mom. Speaking of mom, Mama Frick's in the house. Hello. And Pedro wants to know, what if Alabama beats Georgia? I don't know if you've had that conversation live on the air.
No, we've had it off the air. There's a bunch of stuff that's like, if this happens with this and this happens here and that's that, and these people are here and the Dolphins win the Super Bowl and all this stuff's who knows? We don't know. That one's tough because I don't know can you keep Georgia out? I feel like the College Football Playoff Committee is telling them, like, you have to run the table. You can't lose to Alabama because we're only leaving you at 2 right now, even though you haven't lost in 2 years.
What would be absolute chaos is if Alabama beats Georgia, but let's say Washington takes a loss. Florida State takes a loss.
I don't see Florida State taking a loss.
Well, let's just say they do. I'm saying hypothetically. Yeah. Let's say that the winner of Ohio State, Michigan loses in the Big Ten championship. There are now, and then Alabama beats Georgia. There are now no undefeated teams who gets in. I have no idea.
I mean, you might have Penn State beat Michigan this weekend. That puts Penn State in the running now. Michigan isn't going to fall too far out of it because Penn State's the 10 team. So they'll still be in the top 10. They're still in it. They beat Ohio State. They win the Big Ten. Now they're one. It could go. I mean, this whole thing could go sideways, and we're gonna have the same crap we have every single year.
Pedro
and then Air Force goes undefeated and makes it in the college football. No, I'm kidding. That's not gonna happen. But there's just so much that can happen. There's so much. That's what makes every single week fun, and that's why you have to look forward to the really fun matchups this weekend because playoff teams are going to eliminate each other this week.
Yeah, Pedro doesn't like that hypothetical, and
it's terrible.
Neither do I. If you want the best 4 teams in the country to play, it's the winner of the SEC, whoever it is. It's the winner of the Big Ten. It's the winner of the Pac-12. And it's the winner of the ACC.
No. I don't know. That's not the best 4 teams. I'm sorry. I'm not a Florida State fan. I made that clear. Sorry, Pedro. I know you are. I do not think Florida State is in the top 6 right now in the country. I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. I've seen them play against Boston College. They didn't play Clemson very well. I mean, they're not fantastic. They have a good quarterback. That's about it. And they play in a really weak conference.
Well, nevertheless, let's get off of college football. Let's move over to the world of the NFL from week 9. Pedro wants to make one quick comment. Louisville won't belong if they won the ACC. That's a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
And Volley Polly says he's currently at work and he's going to check in periodically. NFL week 9. We had some games, right? Some teams won, some teams lost. But instead of talking about games, I thought it would be fun to revisit the preseason predictions made by Banker Bill and Bully Rye. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Because there are a lot of things that were done right, a lot of things that were predicted wrong. Bill, you went back and looked at what you had.
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Oh, so you didn't get a chance to look at it.
No, that's why I say, do you have it? Because I don't have it. You kind of have what we had record-wise at this point in the season.
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, your guy was pretty close to being on about at least half the league. First of all, both Bill and I have predicted 9 of the 14 teams to make the playoffs that are currently in playoff seeding right now. I perfectly predicted 9 teams with their records. Baltimore, Dallas at 5-3, if you can believe that. Detroit at 6-2 at this point in the season. I predicted that. Jacksonville, the Rams being 3-6, the Chargers at 4-4, the Vikings at 5-4, New England at 2-7, and Philadelphia at 8-1. All perfect predictions. Another 8 teams, I'm off by a single game. We're talking, I had Chicago right, Denver, the Dolphins off by a game. I actually had the Dolphins 1 game better than they are now. I was off a game on the Jets, even with Aaron Rodgers. I had the Jets at 3-5. They're 4-4. I was a game off on the Steelers, the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Bucks. 17 teams. I predicted either perfectly or almost perfectly. But I've gotten 6 flat out wrong, Bill. I had the Giants at 5-4. They're a dumpster fire. I had the Titans pretty good. They're not 3-5. I had the Colts really bad. I had the Colts at 0-9 through this point in the season.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Richardson sauce. That's what that was.
I had Cleveland really bad. They're 5-3. I thought the Panthers were going to be a lot better than 1-7, and I thought the Falcons were going to be a lot worse than 4-5.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think our predictions. I mean, the fact that again, you get how many teams? 14 teams in the playoffs. We've right now, if the season ended today, we picked over half of the playoff teams. Because that's something fun to rest your head on, right?
I think so. But I do think that there are pretty obvious playoff teams that are kind of shoe-ins regardless. But I think some of the other ones, the fringe ones, are pretty good. I mean, you're looking at like the KC, the Philly that we thought they were going to be good. I think we both thought Detroit was going to be good, and you nailed the record.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's fairly impressive. 9-14. I don't think it's not something. If you were to bet, right, you're going to bet on the teams to get into the playoffs. I think getting 9 out of 14 make you a little bit of money.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're playing like a 14-team parlay and you have
which
to
is
get
almost impossible. Yeah, winning $1 million. That's
Well, so again, if I was able to pull it up right off the top of my head here, I think, as a matter of fact, I do have it. I'm pulling it up now, Bill. Bill, you had, let's see, you had the Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Jags. The teams that didn't make the playoffs that you picked to make the playoffs right now are the Bengals, Bills, and the Titans. If you can believe that, if the season ended today, those 3 teams would not be in the playoffs. You also had the Vikings and the Giants as playoff teams. So you did pretty well with the NFC.
the Vikings they're still there, aren't they?
Do you really think the Vikings make the playoffs with Josh Dobbs?
Josh Dobbs, let's go. He didn't even know players' names this week, man. Had a pretty good game.
Yeah, let's talk about it since we're here.
Yeah.
Josh Dobbs traded to the Vikings. It was before the injury? No,
Wednesday.
It was after the injury.
Wednesday.
He was traded to the Vikings after Kirk Cousins goes down for the year.
Yeah, he got there Wednesday. It was right at the trade deadline.
They were playing I don't know if it was an undrafted rookie or some rookie they had on their team. He gets hurt in this game, and Josh Dobbs is thrust into action and leads them back from the jaws of defeat to a victory.
Crazy.
Does Josh Dobbs?
Crazy.
Do you think anybody should get player of the week? I don't know who actually got player of the week. You think anybody should have gotten player of the week over Josh Dobbs at that point?
I mean, yes. I mean, there's a lot
CJ Stroud.
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, CJ Stroud obviously was just absolutely insane, and I think he solidified the fact that he is the best quarterback to come out of last year's draft, at least up until this point. Obviously, the career is going to go on, but I mean, right now he clearly is leaps and bounds ahead of Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. But yeah, Josh Dobbs. How do you know the playbook at that point? How do you call plays for a guy? Like, are you literally going and doing it in the sand? Like, that guy's going to run a go. That guy's going to run a post. Like, how are you telling him what you've got? The terminology has to be different, right? So how does he know what he's doing? And still, he had, I think, a 101 passer rating in the game. How does that happen? And we're talking about Josh Dobbs. This isn't, a wily veteran. I mean, he is a wily veteran, but he's not a good wily veteran. He's a pretty bad wily veteran.
They said it was his 5th team since last November or something like that.
Not good.
Just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if the Vikings make the playoffs at this point. I don't think they do.
They have a pretty
But
good
we've
roster, and
also
they're playing ball.
well, it's still also hard to believe that right now in the season, the Bills and Bengals are on the outside looking in at the playoffs. That's hard for me to believe.
The
But
Bills
when
have
you
taken a lot of injuries, man. They're just
well, you got to think the Ravens are better than we expect them to. Uh,
yeah.
the Browns are better than anybody expected them to be. Tim Costello in the chat, he'll be on the show with us here shortly. Josh Dobbs had a chip on his shoulder, and he showed up, and he's absolutely right about that. Bill,
Showed it.
based on our predictions, give me your two biggest surprises. Biggest surprise good team in the NFL, and your biggest surprise bad team in the NFL at the halfway point in the NFL season.
Well, my first surprise bad. I don't want to say bad team. I guess bad. I think the Giants have surprised me about how bad they are. Unfortunately, they've taken a lot of injuries, but they were bad when they had the whole team together. I mean, their offensive line has been just horrific, and it's not been good. And just I mean, they're just having a tough season. My uncle called me the other night and wanted to know what was going on with their quarterback situation, and I was like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah,
everybody's hurt.
Good question.
Matt Barkley, I guess. I don't know because they don't seem to want to let Tommy DeVito. They don't seem to want to let him throw. Good team. Wow. What is a surprise good team? That's tough to think about. I think it's certain teams that are surprising me, like Houston. Houston is much better than I thought they would be. Much better than I thought they would be. They're beating teams that I'm surprised by, or surprised about. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's better than I thought they would be.
Yeah, Pedro
They're
coming
having
to
a
chat.
pretty good season.
The 49ers 3-game losing streak surprised to him. It surprised me as well. And I can't wait to talk about them and pick'ems here in a second. Listen, I'll give you my surprise bad team. And it's not going to be a surprise to many people, but it was a surprise to me. The Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
They were a game outside of the playoffs last year. You add some really good veterans to this offense. You draft who's supposed to be the franchise and Bryce Young, and they've won one game, and they haven't really looked. I mean, they've looked competitive, but if you look at their game last week against the Colts, the game's 13-13. If Bryce Young cannot throw touchdowns to the other team, the same defensive back caught 2 pick sixes in that game on targets to Adam Thielen. The Panthers are just not good. Super disappointing, especially considering that they're this bad, which meant that they would normally have a really high draft pick, and they're not going to have it because they traded that pick to the Bears for Bryce Young. If you're talking about good teams, I already mentioned it. I think Cleveland is a lot better than I had them at 1-7. They have a really good defense. They've been able to win some games despite Deshaun Watson not being in the lineup. I think my biggest surprise is the Colts. I had them as the worst team in the league. We both said it preseason that this Colts staff would be gone in 5 years. Well, we don't get to see much from Anthony Richardson because he gets hurt.
3 years.
3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Anthony Richardson goes down early in the season, and Gardner Minshew is rolling off victories. Now granted, one of the wins was against the Panthers, but still. So I think the Colts and the Browns are probably my two biggest surprises as far as they're better than I expected them to be. So we are officially halfway through the NFL season. Bill, does that depress you as much as it does me?
No, I'm pretty excited about the rest of the season. I want to see how this season plays out. My team is as good as I can remember it being for a very long time. And so, yeah, I think you should be saying the same thing, man.
Ditto.
So I kind of let's get to these playoffs and start playing the games that matter because I'm tired of hearing about how my team can't beat winning teams.
Well, we'll have the opportunity to see more football as your Dolphins are on a bye this week.
Yeah,
but we still have
plus the Seahawks gear. That's why the Seahawks gear. What?
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about the mojo this week.
Well, if you joined the show last week, we switched we switched things up a little bit. We switched up the format. We're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we are getting into podcast pick'ems week 11 with special guest Tim Costello joining us to make picks with us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right here on Tap House and Touchdowns. This episode is brought to you by Carolina Business Equipment. With offices in Charleston, Greenville, Columbia, and Florence, Carolina Business Equipment can supply your copiers, computers, and printers anywhere in the state of South Carolina. Call my personal best friend Aaron Thompson at 843-452-8761 for a quote today, and make sure you tell him that Ryan from Tap House and Touchdowns sent you. Carolina Business Equipment,
You worry about your business, let us handle your technology.
Right, everybody. Podcast pick'ems for week 11. Let's look a little bit into the standings real quick before we bring Tim on. Listen, Bill, I didn't have the best week, but you didn't have the greatest week either.
It doesn't matter.
I made a game
matter.
for you the week prior. I gave it back to you this week.
I'm still better than 50%. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2 out of 3. I'm still better than 2 out of 3. So I'm feeling good about that.
Bill sits on the season 33-16-1. I went 2-3 last week, brings me back down 31-18-1. And Bill, we got to give a shout out to Ryan Lapino, a perfect 5-0. The second, I should say, the third person not to lose a game this season in podcast pick'em. Shout out to Big Tex and Matt Buck, who went 4-0-1. Ryan Lapino texted me after one of those games. I think it was Bills Bengals. He says, I wish I had parlayed these games. So probably wouldn't have been a bad idea.
These guest pickers, man, they're clearly better at this than we are. I mean, just the record stands, speaks for itself.
Aaron Thompson in the chat likes the tagline at the end of his own ad. Welcome to the chat, Aaron. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a special guest here, a good friend of the show. Turned on the show a few weeks ago. Bill told me the story. A very good friend of Bill's bringing in to make picks with us this week. So without further ado, let's bring in our special guest picker, Tim Costello. Tim, I got to ask you a question.
Saquon.
I got to ask you a question, Tim. Are you related to Lou Costello? Do you know who Lou Costello is?
Lou Costello. No, fill me in.
Oh,
what
man.
is
this? This is super old, and Bill, you're going to recognize it as soon as I say it.
Wow.
Who's on first?
Because it's old?
Yes.
That's
Who's
messed
on
up,
first?
Ryan.
Abbott and Costello, a very famous comedy duo from, I guess, the 40s and 50s, if not older than that.
I wonder
or maybe
how
a
many
little later
times
than
Tim has
that.
heard that in his lifetime.
So many times.
Have you really? Like, are you messing with me right now, or no? I'm
No,
curious.
really, everyone talks about it all the time.
Okay.
Like Costello, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
the famous name.
I legit wanted to know, man. Like Abbott and Costello was like the first like comedy like routine that I've ever remember seeing as a kid. That wasn't a movie. So
Sorry to hear that.
Tim, you got some big shoes to fill, as you just heard. We had a 5-0, a perfect picker last week. So are you ready to follow that up with another 5-0 week?
It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. First of all, I just want to say thank you for let me pick these teams this week. Long time listener, first time pick 'em. So I'm excited.
I love it.
Let's see what I can do.
All right, let's start off in the world of college football. A big matchup in the Big Ten. Bill alluded to it earlier. Penn State, number 10 in the country now with the college football playoff rankings, hosting the number 3 Michigan Wolverines. Michigan, a 5-point road favorite against Penn State. Tim, who you got here? Penn State versus Michigan.
Well, this is going to be a really close game, but I'm going to go with Penn State on this one. Michigan is 9-0, but you know what? They haven't played a ranked team. They have a lot of drama going on right now. So I think Penn State should cover. It's not a night game. Apparently, Penn State plays a lot better during night. So it's still going to be a great game.
Before we let Bill pick, Volley Polly is in the chat. Tim, you play the guy on the screen right now in our fantasy football league this weekend. So he's saying good luck to you. Aaron Thompson.
Is that Najee?
Yeah, that's Najee by nature. Yeah, that's Najee by nature.
Yeah, that's
Aaron Thompson's taking Michigan, obviously, is the other resident Lions fan. Bill, who you got? Michigan at Penn State.
Not so fast, Tim. I think Michigan is the better team. Penn State failed against Ohio State. I don't feel great about Ohio State now that Clemson beat Notre Dame, and really that was Ohio State's big win. So give me Michigan.
That shade is blinding, Bill. Listen, I'm right there with you. Listen, Penn State has played one really good team this year, and they played them tough, and that's Ohio State.
Are they really good? Are we sure?
They're the number 1 team in the country, according to the experts.
Those guys don't know anything. All they care about is money.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bill here. I think Penn State is this perennial third place in the Big Ten. Like they whatever reason.
Yeah.
They always come behind Michigan and Ohio State just because that's where they are. That's where they belong. Kind of like how for years Georgia finished behind Florida in the SEC East, Auburn behind Alabama, so on and so forth. Penn State falls behind Michigan and Ohio State. A couple of quick comments here,
So
Paige.
who is your pick,
State.
Ryan? Would you give us a pick?
I'd say
there?
Michigan.
You
Yeah.
got Michigan on that one? All
Yeah.
right.
And then
So
Tyler Roberts in
Tim's
the
going to
chat.
stand out there on the ledge by himself with the Penn State team. That'll be fun on Saturday.
Tyler's telling you that you're a smart guy for taking Michigan. Let's move back. Let's move a little bit more east here. We mentioned it. This is a really big game with playoff implications out of the SEC.
Huge.
Number 9, huge. Number 9, Ole Miss at number 2, Georgia. Georgia has had really big spreads against every team they played. I think this might be the smallest spread that they've had this season at 10.5. Bill, I'm going to let you start us off here. You got Georgia or Ole Miss?
Remind me who the coach of Ole Miss is.
That would be Lane Kiffin.
Failure. Give me the Dogs. Dogs covered. I've picked them every week, and I think they've only covered one time. So, yeah, go Dogs.
That's a good point. Tim, who you got here? Georgia versus Ole Miss.
I want to pick Ole Miss, but I think Georgia covers on this one. Ole Miss has a chance to win the West, and that might give them the motivation that they need, but Lane Kiffin will probably do something crazy, and we'll just be like, what's happening here? So I'm going with the Dogs.
Against Tulane. Was it Tulane or what did they play? One of those green weird teams. Didn't play all that well.
Marshall, I'm not sure. Got a couple comments in the chat here. Aaron taking Michigan big, and Dylan Schreiner taking Ole Miss with the upset. Listen, I'm gonna have to go with you guys, man. Listen, we pick Georgia every week and they don't cover, but I think that with the disrespect that they've had over the last 2 weeks, being chosen behind Ohio State, even though they keep playing top 10 to top 15 teams in the SEC every week, that they finally make a statement this week and get a big one against the Rebs of Ole Miss. Pedro also taking Georgia in this one as well. Let's move over to the world of the NFL. Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff. At 1 o'clock East Coast kickoff, the San Francisco 49ers, a 3-point road favorite at Jacksonville. And so before Aaron claims that I don't like going first, I'm going to take this one first.
He always takes the third one. He takes the third one first every time, and then he doesn't have to go first ever again.
Listen, well, I'm going on.
He did last week too. He said the same thing last week. Before Aaron says, "I don't take any first. I'm going to take this one, and then you guys get the other."
Well, before I'm just saying, I'm not this. I'm going out on a ledge here.
Just give it to us.
I don't like West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast for 1 o'clock kickoffs.
Outstanding call.
I don't see San Francisco covering this 3-point spread. I don't see San Francisco winning this game. Give me the Jags at home in an outright win over the 49ers. Tim, what say you?
Even if Debo comes back, I'm thinking Jags all the way on this one. They're going on five straight right now, 4-0 against winning teams. So yeah, just gotta go with the Jags. I have to. I think it's a no-brainer on that one.
Bill, it sounds like it looks like you're in agreement here with this.
Yeah, I feel the same way you guys do. I mean, the statistics kind of speak for themselves in this situation. The Jaguars are on a roll, and the 49ers are taking a midseason nap right now. I was going to call it a dump, but it could be either one. And I think the Jags win this game, especially it's at home. It's in Florida.
Aaron claims that I didn't get to pick first because he put it in the chat first. So I told you he was still gonna do it. Let's go. Gosh. We got another Sunday 1 o'clock kickoff here. An AFC North divisional matchup. The rematch from earlier in the season. Sunday 1 o'clock. The Browns at the Ravens. The Ravens are a 6-point favorite. Tim, I'm gonna let you go first here. You got Browns at Ravens.
Well, first of all, it's going to be Browns defense against Lamar Jackson. At Baltimore, I'm going with the Ravens. And I think if we're talking about Lamar Jackson, he's going to get the MVP also.
Hey,
NFL MVP?
Wow. Calm down.
Wait for it.
You might
I know
We
it's
need to take
his
a,
good
we need to
season.
take a timeout,
Wait
Tim.
for
We
it.
need to put
Yeah.
you in timeout for that one.
You got lots of guys named Tungavailoa and Goff around that will get
Yeah.
really angry.
Yeah, get him, Bill.
Calm
Get
down.
him, Bill. Who you got here? Browns at Ravens.
I think you should go second. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to take
I'll
the
go
Ravens
second.
as well.
Listen,
No,
I
I
was
got it.
gonna
I'm
say,
going to take the
I'm taking
Ravens
the
as
Ravens.
well. 6 points. I don't care. The future not MVP of the NFL is playing very well right now, and he's going to continue that trend, even though he's playing the best defense in the NFL. I think the Browns are very good, and they do really, really muck up the field. I mean, they make it really tough for opposing teams. But I think that this game is in Baltimore, I think they cover the 6. They win by a touchdown.
So I'm gonna tell you this right now. Only one team gets more calls at home than the Ravens, and that's the Eagles. It's going to be a Baltimore home game. The Baltimore Ravens are getting a home game. They're going to get all the calls. They're going to beat the Browns by multiple scores here to try to solidify themselves as a legitimate threat at the number 1 seed in the AFC in the playoffs. A couple of choices here. We got let's see. Aaron chose the Jags in the game prior because that's the one that he said he spoke first. Pedro also has the Jags. Aaron is taking the Ravens, as well as Pedro in this game. Last game on the docket, Sunday 4:25 kickoff. To me, the game of the weekend, probably the best.
Oh, here we go.
Two of the best teams matching up against each other. I know the Ravens are playing the Browns. The Browns are playing really good defense. Yada yada yada. Chargers at Lions Lions at Chargers is a pretty good game. The Lions coming off a bye week, getting David Montgomery back more than likely this weekend. Another week of rest for the Lions going out west to the Chargers. They get a late game when they're already getting some extra sleep going back out west. I'll go first. I'm taking the Lions. I don't think there's anybody really. There's not anybody on this Lions schedule going forward that I don't think they can beat. So give me the Lions on the road. Bill, let's go with you. What say you? Lions at Chargers.
Not so fast, Ryan. Not so fast. We are at the Chargers, my friend. And the Chargers, just in case you haven't noticed, have finally started to figure out how to play football. They put a whooping on Zach Wilson and the Jets this weekend. I think it happens again this week. The Lions lose in Los Angeles, and the Chargers win this game. Cover.
All right, Tim. What say you? Lions at Chargers.
Well, I think it's going to be an absolute shootout. It's going to be a really high-scoring game. I'm going with Lions. I've been a front runner for the Lions all season. I jumped on that bandwagon, and I'm sticking with it.
All right, Bill takes the Chargers as the two of us take the Lions. And there's a sound that I want to play here for how Bill's going to feel after this weekend of making this pick. Bill, that's exactly what it's going to be
awful.
Going into next week. Tim,
I
want to first of all thank you for coming to the show, and first of all, thank you for watching the show every week and participating in the chat. Before we say goodbye to you, would you like to give anybody a shout out here on the show tonight?
Give all you guys shout outs. I love all of you. It's great.
So much love. Right. You feel it, Ryan? I feel it.
Tim's just giving all the love. Tim,
I was super nervous, really super nervous. So hopefully I go 5-0.
Do we make you nervous? Is there something about this mug made for radio that makes you feel nervous?
Handsome guys, man. Handsome guys that know their stuff.
That's why we have so many women fans.
Yeah, because we get two women in the chat every week, and it's my mom and Bill's wife. Those are the only women.
That's right. Imagine if we did the live show in tank tops, how great it would be.
Oh man,
I want to see Pedro do some picks.
Oh, Pedro,
we get him in here. Yeah, we got to do that.
All right, Tim, we're gonna let you go, man. Thanks again for being on the show tonight. We'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Tim Costello, everybody, not related to Elvis or Lou Costello. Let's look in the chat again for some more picks. Volley Polly's liking the picks. Great picks. Aaron says Lions by Fitty. He mentioned that Herbert has a messed up middle finger.
Don't care.
0 touchdowns against the Jets.
Don't care.
Dylan coming in. Chargers are going to smack the Lions around.
At least he
knows. Out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aaron coming back. Lions defense top 3. Chargers not even top 10.
I'll say this, Ryan. If the Chargers fail to beat the Lions, and we'll see how this game plays out. But I mean, can we continue to bang the drum for Justin Herbert being a failure as a starting quarterback at some point? I don't care if it's injuries or what it is, but the dude is just not succeeding.
I don't think if they lose to a team like the Lions, it considers you consider
At
them a
home on
failure.
Sunday Night Football?
It's not Sunday Night Football. It's
That's not a game
4:25.
you're expected to win?
It's not a primetime game. First of all, it's a 4:25 kickoff. But no, the Lions are
I thought it
good.
was,
The Lions
I
are
thought it was
6-2.
Oh, you're right. It is 4:05. I was looking at
Yeah.
the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
No, the Lions are a good football team. That says more about the Lions beating a good Chargers team than it does the Chargers losing.
Yeah, no, I think you're supposed to win that game.
Well, that makes one of us. They're not supposed to beat the Lions when the Lions are this good. Bill, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, it is going to be all fantasy football talk. So make sure if you got any questions about your fantasy teams, invite your friends to the show during the commercial break, and we're going to answer your questions live on the air. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right here on Tap House and Touchdowns.
Established in 2008, One Stop Repairs in North Charleston, South Carolina, is your one-stop shop for all of your electronic repair needs. Specializing in cell phones, tablets, computers, laptops, and game consoles, One Stop Repairs offers reputable and quality service with the quickest turnaround time and the most competitive prices in the Low Country. You can find them on Google with an exceptional 4.9 star rating or on Facebook by searching for One Stop Repairs. Call for a quote today at 843-343-6310. That's the number one, One Stop Repairs.
We are back. Tap
Can
House
we get
and
some music?
Touchdowns.
We need more lead-in music, Ryan.
We need more lead-in music. We'll have some lead-out music. Maybe we'll do some lead-in music for the segments going next week. It's your guy Billy Rye back with Banker Bill, and we're here to talk nothing but fantasy football for the next 25 minutes or so. Let's start off with bullies, buys, and sells. In one game last week, your guy lost to Bill once again, thanks to Will Levis not playing to his potential. 4-4 for me last week. Bill went 5-3 thanks to that pick, which brings Bill's record 43-29 to my record 37-35 in buys and sells. Listen, I'm going to say this right now, and I said it to you off the air. Bill has gotten into my head. There is no other way around it. He takes a giant dump on my low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
The same reason that I would normally make picks to buy or sell against some of these guys are the reasons why now I'm trying to be more risky with my picks.
That's right.
He has gotten in my head.
It's good. Just widen this gap. Widen the gap.
He has completely tanked this segment for me. And all I want to do is help you out. Real quick, before we go into buys and sells, Dylan coming back in. He's a Chargers fan, and he thinks it falls more on Staley than it does on Justin Herbert's failure. But he gets the point where it's overhyped. Pedro said that the Eagles and defense were pretty equal, and he still pulled out a win. He asked about who to start against each other last week, and I think you and I were deadlocked. So let me get my notes out. And you see I'm not pulling out a notepad because I got dogged on by Bill for that. As well.
No, I like your notepad. I'm sad. I like your notepad.
It's all digital now.
1982.
So, yeah. Well, now we're at 2005 where I'm using a laptop to take my notes.
There you go. Technology.
Right. Bullies buys for week 10 in the NFL. Let's start off at quarterback. Let's go to Geno Smith. He is projected 19 points. And here's what I've got about Geno Smith. What a bad week last week for Geno Smith. I believe he had 2 fantasy points, if that. But they get the Commanders this week, and Washington traded away arguably their top 2 pass rushers at the trade deadline. And though the Commanders were able to close out Mac Jones and the Patriots last week, they're still allowing the most points to opposing quarterbacks. And the Seahawks are out to prove that last week was just a fluke. With names like Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa on buys, you could do worse with than Geno Smith. If you've got him, roll with him. If he's available, pick him up and start him. Bill, what say you buy, or is it factor crap to buy on Geno Smith this week?
Well, first I'm going to tell you, Ryan, my backup quarterback on one of my teams is Russell Wilson. The starter is Jalen Hurts, who is also on a bye this week. So there's a lot of really good quarterbacks on buys this week. And I didn't feel so good about Russell Wilson. Before you ever made this pick, Ryan, I picked up Geno Smith in that league, and I am starting him. So this is a fact. This is a fact. This man, he's playing the worst defense against passers in the NFL. It's going to happen. He's going to have a good game. It's going to be a good game.
Got a couple more chats in here. Andy, loving the jersey and the hat Bill's rocking tonight.
Andy?
Matt Buck saying that Geno Smith did have a terrible week, and he did. Unfortunately.
He did.
Tim back in the chat dropped him for Dobbs and left Dobbs on the bench. You might want to go pick him back up. And Matt is starting him, and he's just now realizing that Matt's late to the party. So Matt, the Dolphins are on a bye this week, and Bill lived in Washington for 18 years, had season tickets. So the Seahawks are his adopted second team. So he probably just became more of a fan of Bill.
They're like there with the Giants, it is. Yeah.
You probably just picked up a new fan in Matt for wearing the Rock of the Seahawks.
Right. You should see how many of these jerseys I have.
Well, that's good stuff. Let's see. We had one more chat. Okay, he's getting it. All right, let's go to running back that I'm buying this week. And it's running back Josh Jacobs, projected 16.6 points. Listen, he's got back-to-back weeks exceeding his current projection, but he's got a renewed workload under the new regime in Vegas. We talked about it last week. They fired the GM, fired the OC, fired head coach. And last week, Jacobs saw 26 carries against the Giants. And now he gets the other New York team and the Jets, allowing the 8th most points to running backs in fantasy. I hated Jacobs early in the season. He held out, didn't show up to camp until late, but he's gotten into game shape, and he is playing with a rookie quarterback now at the helm over Jimmy Garoppolo. A new reliance on the running game in Jacobs, and I think he's got big fantasy games ahead of him, including this week. Bill, factor crap to buy Josh Jacobs at 16.6 points.
Ryan, Josh Jacobs has beat this prediction in 4 games this season. However, it was 4 of the last 6 games this season, so this is a fact. Play Josh Jacobs if you have him. He's finally being the Josh Jacobs we know.
Yep, there we go. So far we're in agreement on 2. I know you're not going to like some of myself.
You're finally correct about some things, Ryan.
I swear. Oof. All right, let's go to wide receiver here. Hollywood Brown is the wide receiver I'm buying this week. A relatively low projection in 13.6 fantasy points. Let me give you my reasoning. The Cardinals get a Falcons team, allowing the 11th fewest points to wide receivers. Bad matchup. All signs point to the return of Kyler Murray this week. Obviously, the Cardinals traded away Josh Dobbs, played a different quarterback last week. And if Kyler Murray is going to get on track, they're going to need to get Marquise Brown going in this game. I think not only does Kyler Murray get on track in week 1 for him, I think Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to reap the benefits despite only hitting his current projection once in the last 4 games. I like Marquise Brown's prospects this week. Bill, factor crap buying Marquise Brown at 13.6.
This is crap, Ryan.
Yeah,
I already knew it. Kyler Murray was not a good quarterback last year when he was healthy. Not going to happen in week 1. The rust is going to be strong. That is not a good team. And I just don't feel comfortable if I have Marquise Brown to play him this week. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be all that good.
All right, let's move over to tight ends here in fantasy. And my tight end that I'm buying this week, Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans, projected 12.4 fantasy points. I really like Dalton Schultz in preseason. You and I talked about it, I think, off the air.
Yep, you sure did.
Boy, did he finally have a coming out party last week for Houston. 27 fantasy points last week.
Huge.
Granted, C.J. Stroud, my quarterback, sell last week. Broke all sorts of rookie records last week for the Texans. Just under 500 yards and I believe 5 touchdowns with no interceptions. Nobody expects that repeat performance out of the Ohio State rookie quarterback. But Schultz has now beaten his current projection in 4 of his last 5 games. So I expect him again this week as the Texans play the Bengals, allowing the 3rd most points to opposing tight ends. And again, for team managers with Travis Kelce on bye, if Schultz is available, go get him and start him this week. Bill, what say you? Factor crap to buy Dalton Schultz at 12.4.
It's a fact, Ryan. Dalton Kincaid has hit this projection 4 out of the last 5 weeks, and you said it. He exploded last week. Boy, were we wrong.
I know you meant Dalton Schultz. You said
I said Kincaid. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was reading the comment. Thanks, Pedro. Yeah, sorry.
Pedro throwing you off.
My fault. So Dalton Schultz. I do like. We were really wrong about C.J. Stroud last week, weren't we? We both said we were really bad. They got tape on him. Yeah, that was apparently the wrong tape because he went crazy. I think Dalton Schultz, you said at the beginning of the season, I think I drafted him in one of my leagues and dropped him because he was terrible early on, and now he's clearly figured it out. And CJ Stroud's found him, so play him.
Let's see. We got a couple. We're going to talk about Pedro's tight end question here in a minute. But I think he's already going. Dalton Schultz. Listen, we'll talk about that here in a second. And then Tim Costello coming in with Kate Otten having a big week. I played him at the last minute because of the Darren Waller injury, and he had a good week, but it wasn't enough. Thanks to Garrett Wilson not scoring a touchdown on Monday Night Football, I lost that game. So buying Dalton Schultz, and Bill loves that pick as well. Let's get into bully sells.
It's good
Here for week 10 in fantasy football. And my quarterback, it hurts me to say it because I'm playing him in one league because I don't have another choice. And that's San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, projected 18.7 points. Let me give you my reasons behind it. Coming off a bye week and a favorable matchup, Jags allowing the 10th most points to quarterbacks. And there's a good sign that Deebo Samuel may be back. We talked about this in Pick'ems in the last segment. However, we talked about this also. West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock kickoff game that at least lays one egg every single year. My biggest prediction of the week, the 49ers not only lose to a surging Jags on the road, but I think Purdy struggles in the process, which is why I'm selling him. Bill, what say you? Factor crap selling Brock Purdy at 18.7.
I'm also feeling like this is a fact, Ryan. I like your analysis of the game. He has not hit this prediction 2 out of the last 3 weeks. He did make it last week, but he is playing a very good Jaguars team that is on a roll, and they're in Jacksonville. And like you said, he's traveling across the country. This is going to be tough for Brock, and playing a good team. It's going to be tough. So I think this is a fact, Ryan. I would I would not play Purdy this week.
All right, this running back that I'm selling is going to. I'm sure it's already surprised Bill. It's going to surprise Aaron, and it surprises me as well. I don't know why he's calling for low-hanging fruit. I don't think this is low-hanging fruit.
I do.
David Montgomery projected 14.1 points. He's missed, I believe, the last few weeks. I know the last at least 2 games. He had a bye week last week, and he's again another comeback from injury this season. This is the second time he's been hurt, and the Lions travel out west. But my reasoning for selling on David Montgomery isn't because it's low-hanging fruit. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has done enough in the absence of David Montgomery to warrant more usage.
That's why it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but that's the thing. A lot of people were thinking Montgomery's coming in. He's going to take the workload.
No.
And I don't think that's the case.
Gibbs a first-round draft pick, my friend.
But Montgomery was still getting the bulk of the workload.
He was young. He didn't have pass protections down yet. Gibbs has found his way.
Well, listen, I'm glad you feel that way because the Chargers rank in the bottom half of the league when it comes to running backs in fantasy. I still think you're going to get a timeshare, but I'm honestly, I'm feeling that this is another Devin Achane, Raheem Mostert situation. You're starting him because he's playing, but I don't expect him to get more than 14 points. Bill, I'm guessing you're factoring this with the way that you're calling this low-hanging fruit.
I'm also going to say fact on this one. The only thing that scares me a little bit about that, Ryan, is that I think if they get near the end zone, he's going to be the thumper that they give the ball to get into the end zone. That scares me. However, I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take touches away from him now that he's played well. And Gibbs is electric. He's fast. That guy moves. So I think he's definitely going to take touches away from Montgomery, but I think Montgomery could get over this just by running into the end zone.
I'll
still say fact.
He makes fast people look not fast.
Not fast, yeah.
All right. Let's get a wide receiver that I'm selling this week, and that's New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave, projected 14.4 points. He's only hit his current projection twice since week 3. And despite Minnesota allowing the 8th most points to opposing wide receivers, Chris Olave has not looked like himself in the last few games, even after finding the end zone last week. If you've got Chris Olave, more than likely you have to start him. And some experts really like him this week. I just don't. I think you need to temper your expectations. I think that he is a touchdown heavy, like touchdown reliant wide receiver this week, which is why I'm selling Chris Olave. Bill, is that a factor or is that crap?
I think it's crap, Ryan. and it's tough. I actually wrote as my notes on this one this one's really marginal. I mean, you were really out there on this one. I'm like, well, he could be right. He could be wrong. I mean, this one's tough. So yeah, I mean, I think this one's a toss up between the two of us. And just because of that, I'm going to say it's crap and we'll see who wins.
I told you, you've gotten in my head. And
it's
I'm
marginal.
trying...
This one's marginal. This is tough. This is a tough one. That was you going way out there. And I was like, wow, really? Actually, I think we were before the show, I was kind of doing research and I said, what are you thinking on this guy? What are you doing here? Like, this was really tough. I think Olave could easily get over 14-4. Just because he's not playing a good not a good pass defense. I think that's going to be difficult because Minnesota's not that great, but that team's playing pretty well, and I think Olave is a pretty good receiver. So we'll have to see. Like that's going to be fun.
Well, if you think that's a head scratcher, then this is definitely going to be a head scratcher. I'm selling Mark Andrews this week. He's projected 12.6 points. You thought I was probably accidentally buying a second tight end.
Wow.
No, I'm selling Mark Andrews. This is why, okay? The last time the Ravens played the Browns, Mark Andrews caught five of 5 targets for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a 25-point fantasy game.
So they're just going to take him out of the game.
However, the Browns are currently giving up the fewest points to opposing tight ends in fantasy.
Yep.
And I assure you, the Browns remember what Mark Andrews did to him earlier this season. Again, you've got to start him, but temper your expectations for Mark Andrews this week. Bill, factor crap to sell at 12.6 points, Mark Andrews.
Well, Ryan, I feel assured that you know what you're talking about here because the Browns will not forget what Mark Andrews did to them. And I'm going to call fact on this one, Ryan. This one, I said fact, and this one's dangerous, but the Browns have a good D, and obviously they are good at taking tight ends out of the game. Mark Andrews is that one anomaly, and like you said, they're not happy about it. So even though I think the Ravens are going to cover the spread on this game, I think it's going to have to go to other players. But pick up Nelson Aguilar this week. I think he's going to – no, I'm just kidding. Just pick other players. I think they're going to try to stop Mark Andrews and have the Ravens beat him a different way.
Cotton, I feel shocked.
I know.
I was not.
I couldn't believe it when you wrote it, and then I started researching it, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm with him on this for just the reason that the Browns have a fantastic defense. Gus Edwards has been playing fantastic for the Ravens recently, and I think that's the way that the Ravens are going to try to attack the Browns. I think, like you said, the Browns are going to try to take Andrews out of the game.
All right. Well, that's the Bullies buys and sells and Bill's factor crap. Now we're going to get into some of your fantasy football questions that you have put on social media. Before we get about it, let's go back here to Pedro's tight end question. Dalton Schultz or Dalton Kincaid? Kincaid playing the Broncos, Schultz playing the Bengals to take over for Travis Kelce. We made a very good argument for Dalton Schultz, but I think one can make an argument that you can't go wrong with one of these two tight ends. Bill, who would you take, Schultz or Kincaid?
I mean, Kincaid, he got targeted like 47 times in the game the other night. I mean, I felt like that's all I was watching the game, and I'm like, are they going to throw to anybody else but Kincaid? I like Kincaid a lot, but I think we made a pretty good, case for Dalton Schultz being your tight end. If you have both those tight ends on your team, put them both in, flex them. That's pretty good. You might be
honestly,
might be able to put up some good points with both of those guys playing.
Honestly, I'm right there with you.
I don't think you can go wrong there. I really don't.
Ricky Burns.
I think the only thing I'm concerned with, Ryan, is that Cincinnati is probably the better team and they're the hotter team, and Denver doesn't have a very good defense.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Ricky Burns in the chat talking about the Ravens. Now they have Keaton Mitchell helping them out. So I believe, the Ravens running back, not just all the running backs that they've got in Baltimore. Now they've got Keaton Mitchell. That seems to be a good pickup. All right, let's go to some of the questions that we had.
I know him as Rick, though, Ryan. I know. I always call him Rick. Yeah.
Apologize. Listen, I haven't said this once on the show, and shame on me. If you're live in the chat, leave a comment. Let us know if you have, you got any questions about who you want to play this week. Some pickup options in your waiver wire, in your free agency going into this really big bye week with a lot of teams on buys. Make sure you leave a comment wherever it is, facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns, YouTube or Twitter, wherever you're watching. Make sure you join the conversation. Here's some of the questions that got asked on social media. They're all from Aaron Thompson. Let's start off here.
He has to set his roster every week, doesn't he? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think so. Well, listen. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Before we talk about Jared Goff versus Baker Mayfield, I'm going to call Aaron out because this guy told me for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Oh, yeah.
I rostered Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Fields, and Brock Purdy. And as much as I've taken a dump on Justin Fields on this show, he's like, if you drop Justin Fields, nobody's going to pick him up because he's hot garbage just like you say he is. And who do you think picked up Justin Fields in my main, the Fricks Fantasy Football League waiver wire this week? Aaron Thompson. And now Justin Fields won't play this week.
Good
I'm
stuff.
sure that's him in the chat. It's not him in the chat. That's unfortunate. All right, Aaron wants to know, Jared Goff against the Chargers or Baker Mayfield against the Titans? Bill, I'm going to let you start us off here, man. Who would you play? I know which way that I would lean.
Yeah, we all know which way you would lean. You probably shouldn't even answer this question, Ryan, because we know which way you're going with this one. I agree with you, Ryan, and I'm going to say Jared Goff as well.
Yeah, you start Jared Goff. Baker Mayfield does not look like Baker Mayfield.
Actually, he's been pretty good. If you look at Baker Mayfield's stats, he's had pretty good. I mean, he's 23 points per game or so. He's like the 16th ranked quarterback in the league. You're only starting him if you have your other quarterback on a bye. I would imagine that's what you're doing. But I think Jared Goff is a marginal starter in fantasy football, so I think you play him.
Baker Mayfield playing Tennessee, giving up the 11th fewest points to quarterbacks this season. He's projected 20.8. You look at Jared Goff, projected 18.9. The Chargers are giving up the third most points to quarterbacks. You start Jared Goff if you look at the matchups here. He also wants to know, and I think this is a two-part question, in a PPR league, DeAndre Hopkins or Kenneth Walker the third. Bill, wearing the Seahawks gear, I'm going to let you start us off here with the two because I really want to know which way you're headed.
I think, honestly, because the Titans are still playing Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins is a better pick right now.
Yeah, Hopkins, the Bucs are giving up the second most points to wide receivers. Kenneth Walker doesn't have a terrible matchup. Washington's given up the 16th.
Not a great, it's middle of the road.
Middle of the road.
And they lost two defensive linemen at the trade deadline, so that team isn't as good as that 16th probably.
Yeah, I'd probably play Hopkins. I mean, PPR, like they're feeding Hopkins now that Webb Levis is back there.
Yep.
But he also follows that up with starting 2 of 3 with both of those two guys.
Yeah.
But then throw Joe Mixon into the mix.
Yeah, I'm adding Mixon to my roster there.
Yeah, but of these two, obviously we just said that we would start Hopkins over Walker.
Right. So
I think you're starting Mixon and Walker, or Mixon and Hopkins. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to start Mixon as well. Yeah, Mixon's on a roll. That team is on a roll, and yeah, I think I'm starting Mixon, especially because they're playing Houston.
I made the mistake.
Isn't a great defensive team.
I made the mistake of trading away Joe Mixon in order to get an upgrade at wide receiver because my wide receivers were Hopkins that was underperforming until 2 weeks ago, who's DJ Moore in Chicago, who was really hit or miss, especially with no Justin Fields in the lineup. And then I can't even remember my third. Oh, my third wide receiver was whoever I traded away. So I could get Garrett Wilson and Raheem Mostert because Devin Achane should be back this week. So now I've got the handcuff if either one of those guys go down.
Or play them both. Remember how good they were together? You might be able to play them both.
Play them both. Yeah. Folks, that's our fantasy football talk. Make sure you go on social media and let us know your questions before we go live every Wednesday, and we'll answer your fantasy football start and sit, just general questions live here on the air. But before we sign off tonight, it's my favorite time of the show, and that's Homer's Corner. Bill, would you like me to kick off Homer's Corner here?
No, I got it. Mine's not that exciting, but I am super excited. It is obviously bye week, so I'm going to say go Hawks this week. Starting Geno Smith on one of my fantasy teams, so I'm excited about the Hawks playing this weekend. Thus the gear. But on the other side of the bye, I get my boy Devin Achane back, and I am so freaking excited about that, man. Dude was second in the NFL in rushing after only playing in 4 out of the first 6 games. Actually, I think he had played in the second game, but only had 1 carry for 5 yards. And he was only behind CMC for rushing yards as he was averaging about 13 yards per carry. So I cannot wait till this kid gets back. I cannot wait to see how dynamic the offense becomes once he comes back. And that's my Homer's Corner. Go Dolphins. I'm really excited to get Achane back.
Listen, as a fantasy football player who drafted him in every league when you told me you're not going to need him because they got
you're crazy. I thought you were crazy. I didn't think they would be using him over Mostert, but they, wow, the kid's unbelievable.
I can't wait to see him come back as well. Yeah. My Homer's Corner has to go to the world of women's college basketball.
What?
The Lady Gamecocks preseason were not ranked number 1 for the first time. You know what I'm doing. That's Homer's Corner, man. We get to talk about whatever we want. Man. Where are my Gamecocks gear? Listen,
you're just reaching for one of your teams to please be good. Like we're going to get a report about the Gamecocks pool team like billiards team one day. Like, oh, they finally have, they're ranked in the billiard, or the bowling team is really good. Yay.
Be jealous because we have an all-world coach and a great team. The Lady Gamecocks, for the first time in like 4 years, were not preseason number one. That honor went to the defending national champion, LSU Tigers. The Gamecocks get to go to France to play number 10 Notre Dame. The Gamecocks go in starting the season ranked 6th in the country. They beat Notre Dame 100-71. Absolutely throttled another top 10 team. You want to know what number 1 LSU did? Number 1 LSU got throttled by Colorado. Not the Deion Sanders college football Colorado. The number 1 LSU Tigers got throttled by Colorado by like 20 points. My Lady Gamecocks are back. They've reloaded like they always do. And one of these days, I'm actually going to get to go down there and watch a women's game. The women's SEC tournament will be in Greenville once again this year. So if I can find my way to that tournament, I will definitely make an appearance. Before we go,
wait, Ryan, I just want to ask you a question because you like really reporting on things not football with South Carolina.
Sure.
Do you know what the all sport championship is for college NCAA? They give a trophy away.
Yeah.
But they have like a scoring system for the best combined sports and the best.
Yeah, we do that with Clemson. It's a rivalry, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you know what it's called?
No, I have no idea.
It's called the Capital One Cup, and they give it away for the men's and the women's.
Mm-hmm.
How many times has South Carolina won that? They've given it away 12 times. It's 12. It's 13 years, but they didn't give one away for COVID because they shut everything down. Have the Gamecocks? I mean, they've been fantastic, obviously, in women's water polo and all the other women's teams that you report on. But how many times have they won the Capital One Cup? I have those statistics if you'd like them.
We probably haven't won one, I'm assuming.
Okay. They split it between men's and women's. So even though you've had a very good basketball team for a very short time, they have never won one, unfortunately, in women's.
Yeah, they started the year after our football team was 11 wins and baseball team was winning back-to-back national championship and all that stuff.
When was that?
That was 2010, 2011.
Okay, that because it was awarded for the first time that season, so you didn't win it. Do you know who did?
I'm guessing you're going to say Florida.
The Florida Gators, at least in men's.
This guy can't even let me have my own Homer's Corner. I gave you your platform, and you got to take a giant dump.
3 out of the 12 years, the men's have been handed to the Florida Gators, including this past season.
Close out the show here. Rick Burns, glad he got to catch the show. I'm glad you got to catch it too. Tim Costello, Lady Irish for the win. And then Pedro's having a good laugh at the back and forth that you and I are having right now. Bill, before we sign off, anybody you want to shout out tonight before we get out of here?
I got nothing going on, man. I'm excited this weekend to go watch some Furman University football, FU. And
FU one time.
That's
FU
right.
2 times, FU 3 times, FU all the time.
That's right. That's right. Furman University, we're going to go to that this weekend. Number 2 team in the country for the FCS. And I hope everybody has a good week. Actually, 2 weeks. I'm not going to be here next week.
Oh, yeah. Let me mention that in a second. Pedro, go Knowles, Fly Eagles Fly. Mama Frick telling us we got great coverage. Next week, we're going to have a guest host because Baker Bill is going on a trip for his anniversary. So we're going to have somebody new on the show. I haven't decided who I'm going to bring on yet, but it should be a good time. Make sure if you want to follow me on social media, Twitter at Tapouts and TDs, Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns is where you can find me. Make sure you also go and listen to the Cat Cave over on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network or on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel, where you can get all Carolina Panthers talk from me and my guy, Shannon Smith. But that's all the time we've got this week on Tap Outs and Touchdowns. For Banker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Rye, and we'll see you next week right here on Tap Outs and Touchdowns.